You know, hey, so you come along. So.
All right. There we go. Well, welcome everybody to our How to Apply webinar for today with the South Carolina American Revolution Sestercentennial Commission, also known as SC250. I'm Heather Hawkins, and as I mentioned, we've got Brett standing by with the chat. So if you have a question, you can stick it in there, or you can hold the questions to the end, and we will be going to do a demo in just a moment. So real quickly, the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution is why are we celebrating it? Because here in South Carolina, we had more than 400 skirmishes, battles, and bloodshed. And this is the state. So we want to tell this story and reclaim that story here about South Carolina. And it's important that we are telling an American Revolution story in any kind of application. When is this anniversary? Well, the anniversary is now. So yes, there will be fireworks on July 4th, 2026, but so much more. The Revolutionary era from 1770 to 1783, that takes us 2020 to 2033. That's the Boston Massacre all the way to the treaties of Paris. And this is very important because any application must fit within those parameters as set up by the commission. So far, we've given over 213 grants out, almost $6 million across our state. And we want to help continue to do that and spread the love across our state by our different grant opportunities. We still have our County 250 organizing grants, but we also now have monthly grants, not monthly stipends, but monthly grants, major grants, and premier projects. The monthly grants are grants that are up to $15,000, and we have up to 12 months to complete it. We review those monthly. The only month where we don't have a deadline is July. Match is not required. However, partnership and cost share is highly encouraged, and you get 80%. And this is true for all of our grants, except for some of our organizing grants that go straight to municipalities. But most of our grants are 80% upfront, and then the last 20% is a reimbursement, and that's at the completion of paperwork and approval of that final paperwork. So we also have major grants. That takes us from $15,001 to $125,000. So that's up to 24 months to complete those major grants. We can adjust that slightly depending on your timeline. We review these quarterly, and the next deadline is coming up March the 26th for that one. 20% of your total budget is the match that's required for these major grants, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. Again, 80% upfront, 20% of final report. Select acquisition projects may require 100% of the grant be held by an escrow agent, but we can talk one-on-one if you're looking at a site acquisition project. We also have premier projects, which are $125,001 and up, and those must be completed by 2033. They can be completed prior to that, but they have to be completed by then because that's when we'll sunset. We review these quarterly, and there are 2 steps in this review. You do have to make a full presentation to the commission in order to receive these grants. And again, the next deadline is March the 26th for that one. 25% of your total budget, not your ask, but your total budget, is the match required, the cost share required for that grant. 80% paid up front, 20% reimbursed after the final report, unless you're one of those acquisition projects that we mentioned. So let's talk about the types of grants that all 3 of those, the monthly, the major, and the premier project, have types that fall under those. All 3 of them you can apply under these types. The first one is museum and library style exhibit grant. Consider locating a panel outside of a museum where there's lots of foot traffic. Go to where the people are. That we have some examples of those there. Local activities grant. How do you reach people outside the tent? Not just have an event at your historical society, but maybe have an event at another event that already has great foot traffic of people coming, maybe a sporting event or a festival or something else. So that's a great way to look at local activities grant. Here are some of the ones that we have funded so far. And then we have the Historic Tourism and Marketing Grant. So this is slightly changed a little bit more since we started. This allows for marketing. Cultural tourists spend 38% more than the average tourist. So that's the market we're going after. They eat local, stay local, look for local experiences. So we're hoping to have lots of great historic tourism as part of our projects. Research, publication, genealogy, and digitization is another type of grant that you can apply for. Eligible in addition to nonprofits, institutions, individuals may also apply for this grant. So that's one of the differences for the research and publication. You can have an individual apply for that one. And here are some projects that have been in that. Education, one of our primary goals. So we have lots of education projects that we've done, like with Liberty Live. And we have signage and marker grants. This is from interpretive signs to tourism directorial signs to historic markers to marking 18th century roads. This is signage and marker grants. And then, of course, site grants, as I mentioned, this could be planning. This could be acquisition, this could be development of a site, or even renovation, as long as you're adding value to the site. I will mention we do not do new construction. So new construction of a building is not part of this. And restoration of the building, it would have to fall under the years that we're talking about. So be very careful with that. In fact, if you have a site grant that you want to ask about, I encourage you to reach out to us in advance so that we can have a more detailed talk about that. Application deadlines, monthly grants. Our next one is going to be March 3rd. For the monthly grant, we'll have another one April 1st, and then May 1st, and then June the 2nd. Major and premier projects, we have March the 26th, and then June the 26th. All these are at 3 p.m. Eastern time that you have to have it in the system in the Web Grants program. Now we're spending money, the people's money. So this means documentation and paperwork, unfortunately. So let's be responsible with our people's money. Let's talk a little bit about the fiscal agent. The fiscal agent is the person who is going to handle the money. This could be another agency. It doesn't have to be the Historical Society, or it could be the Chamber of Commerce. It could be the county. So decide who's going to manage the money. Now, what are those responsibilities of that fiscal agency, or that fiscal agent? They're going to provide documentation for the application. They're going to officially sign the grant agreement because they are technically the grantee. Follow the local procurement policies. They're going to manage cash flow for the last 20% because, again, the last 20% is a reimbursement. They're going to manage receipts and proof of payment. They're going to have available for audits if funds, if randomly selected by the state auditors. So those are the responsibilities of a fiscal agent. That's the first thing you have to decide is who's going to handle the money when you go to apply. Now, grant funding distribution, as we mentioned, 80% up front, 20% upon final paperwork with the receipts being approved. So make sure that you're negotiating any contracts accordingly. The only exception of this is a county or municipality that's getting a county organizing grant. That's the only time we give 100% upfront. Everything has to go in through the Discover SC Web Grants program, and we're going to do a demo in just a moment. And there are different sections to this application: general info, cover sheet, narrative, assurances, support documents, and budget. So let's talk about narrative best practices. We have a Word version that you can use to practice. I'm going to show you where to find it in the system so that you can download it and type in the Word version and then cut and paste over into the system. You don't have to do that. That's just something that I found that a lot of people find helpful. Also, the important sections, these sections that we're going to talk about now are going to be the ones that, if awarded, these sections get copied into your contract. So you need to make sure that they're accurate, you can stand by them, you can deliver on those deliverables. So the first section is going to be your project summary. It's going to be your elevator speech. That's your first question in your narrative. This is, give me that summary of what you want to do. The next thing is, how does it relate to the American Revolution in South Carolina? Be very specific. Then our deliverable sections, the other sections that's super important. The first section is deliverables, so tangible items. So a lot of people want to talk about their hopes and dreams of what this will deliver. In this deliverable section, you want to list the tangible items you're going to buy with the money. What are you going to have at the end of the day? And it could be a report, it could be equipment, it could be an event, but you need, what is going to be the deliverable at the end of the day? It needs to be something tangible. And then measurement of success. How are you going to measure how well the grant went through? And that also will be copied into your contract. And when you go to do that final report, you'll be having to list all of these things and prove all of these things that you've mentioned in your original application. So again, very important. Now, longevity is the deliverable side, the impact side, that is the heart. Why is it important to do this? How are we going to find longevity and not just have it be one day event? If I had some advice to give, one of the things I've really been looking for is, how do we make something longer than just one day? How does it live beyond a one-day event? Let's talk a little bit about the budget. So budget best practices. Don't create the budget based on the ultimate amount that you can ask for. What do you really need? Make sure that you're starting from there. Get some quotes, do your homework. Not all budget categories may be compatible with your grant type. So if you don't need acquisition, skip acquisition. Feel free to skip it. If the grant request amount is part of a larger budget, please only include SC250 funding request in the breakdown sections. A lot of people want to put the entire budget there. In the budget section, you're only going to put what you're asking us for. And then you'll have your cost match, which will be the rest of your budget. And I'll give you an example when we get closer to that, when we do the demo. Make sure to not exceed the total amount available for this grant type. So if you're going for a $15,000 grant, if you're going for a monthly grant that only goes up to 15, don't try to go higher than that. For the County 250 organizing grants, the SC 250 requested amount must total $3,000 exactly. So keep that in mind. Personnel refers to staffing, while contractual section refers to people you're hiring for a specific task. And administrative staffing should represent no more than 20% of the budget request. So that first section, that personnel, if you're talking about overhead, it shouldn't be any more than 20% of your total budget ask. Also, something that's changed in the last little bit is they're leaning away from paying for food and travel. So keep that in mind as you go to build out your budget, and maybe those are things that are in your match. In kind, so its match is not supposed to be in kind, it's supposed to be actual cash that's being applied. And even if not required by the monthly grant, seeing some cost share is always nice and looks really good to those folks who are doing the review. Now let's talk a little bit about how to calculate the match, and I can provide these slides and this calculation for you if you have any trouble. This is how you figure out what your 20% match would be. So you would have if your total budget is $375. So let's say you don't know your total budget, but you know your ask is $300,000. then if you divide it by 80%, you're going to get 375,000. And then 20% of that is $75,000. So this is how you figure out from your ask what your match is going to be. And again, it's 20% of your total, not 20% of what you're asking for. So don't do 20% of 300,000, do 20% of 375, your total budget. All right, some more quick reminders. Explore our websites. Make sure the project is American Revolution in South Carolina at its center. Make sure it's 1770 to 1783. Complete one application already, then go ahead and copy. Don't redo all the paperwork. Show partnerships and cost share. Demonstrate clear deliverables and a researched budget. Demonstrate impact on longevity. And go ahead and register for your state vendor number to set up direct deposit. Those are some of my top tips for filling out the application. So now I'm going to stop sharing and go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing and go do a demo for you guys. And while we switch over to do the demo, I will take some questions. Do we have anything that's in chat, Brett, that we need to?
Nothing yet.
Okay. Well, wonderful. All right. Well, let me see if I can escape out. I'm going to end my slideshow and see if I can now share my computer screen. Give me 1 second. Does anybody have any questions while we're waiting on that? All right. Well, let's see if I can share the right screen here. Now, it's a lot of information. Again, if you pre-registered for the Zoom, then I will be sharing the slides with you. And I also have a step-by-step on applying that I will share with you. But if you did not pre-register in advance for this webinar, you can put your email in the chat and we can make sure that you get a copy of those. Okay, let's do a little demo. We're going to start actually by logging in. So if you've not registered already, you're going to start by clicking here to register. And simple enough, you're going to need to fill everything out. This is the one thing I let you know. Make sure that you're choosing me, the South Carolina 250, so that I get this information. And that way I'm the one that's checking you off and it comes to me, reminds me that I have somebody new that wants to be approved, because it does have to be pre-approved. Now, under your organization, if you don't have a EIN number, you can do individual and it keeps you from having to have an EIN number. If you have the EIN number, please do it and it'll show up there. And you can fill that out. But if you don't have an EIN number, if you're an individual, mark your organization type as individual and it will take that away as a requirement. Then I'm not a robot and then you'll register. All right, I'm going to go back because I am already registered and we're going to see if it will pull me back up. Let's see if it'll let me in here. All right, so this is my external user. I'm going to go to funding opportunities. That'll make me sign in. All right. I'm going to go to funding opportunities on the left. And let's say I want to apply. You can see that there are other PRT. We share this system with PRT. They're wonderful to let us do that. So these at the top are SC250 ones, and I'm going to go for the major grant. And notice that when I hover on something, it allows me to click on it. I can click anywhere in the row if it turns green. All right, I'm going to, I could start a new one or I could copy an existing application. So if you've already done one application, you can copy an existing one. You select which one to copy, and then you hit the orange button to create a new one. Let's go ahead. I've got one set up for us already though. Let's go to applications and let's see if I can find my Bexley County. We're going to look at this one. Excuse me, let me find the right one. You see, I worked with a lot of people. Let's see. So once you have started one, you will see it shows up under applications. And let's see. I created one earlier. There it is. Okay. So now that I've copied another one of my applications, I'm going to edit my application. And every time you hit edit, it's going to take you to the top of the screen. As I scroll down, you're going to see the different sections. These are the sections I mentioned to you earlier. We have general information. And even when I copy, I want to go, even though there's a check mark there, I want to go back in there. And I'm going to have to move you guys out of the way so I can, let's put you over here. I'm going to edit my form and see how it says copy at the end. So I'm going to rename this 2025. Now you can choose yourself as a primary person, or you could choose someone else. You have the organization. You can be a part of multiple organizations, so you can select which organization. And then let's say that in Bexley County, I need to have Molly Fortune also able to see this grant. So I'm going to click there and add her as an additional applicant, additional contact. This is how you allow your cohorts to be able to see the application at the same time. So this is under your general information page. I'm going to save that, and you can now see we continue to have a check mark because we copied, but we've now updated the title so it no longer says copy under the name, and we've added somebody so they have access. Next one that we want to get a check mark for is the cover sheet. So I'm going to go in the cover sheet and I'm going to edit my form. It always takes me back to the top. And here are my questions. Are you located in South Carolina? Yes. Does this project specifically pertain to the American Revolution? Yes. Official County 250 committee is the application type in this example. And the type of competitive grant that we're going to be applying for, we're doing a local activities grant. And then who will be managing your grant funds? Best practice is to always have the applicant be the fiscal agent. So that means that if you are having your county be your fiscal agent, the county is technically the applicant. So for example, we have our project director. We got Daniel Morgan, of course. He's going to be our project director for this project. But Alexander Hamilton is our treasurer for the county. So the fiscal officer belongs to the county, and the committee person that's going to do all the work is going to be the project director. Now, we have one more question here. This one says, is the authorizing officer the same as above? So the only time you would say no is if maybe you have a nonprofit and you want your executive director to sign off on anything before you spend any cash, then you would say a no here and add that person's information and contact information. That way they get notified as we send out notifications about all of the contracts. And the final section here, this is the state vendor number. And there's a link right here to your procurement.sc.gov. Your state vendor number has to be a unique identifier, and this is specific to the state of South Carolina. So this is not your Secretary of State charity number. This is not your EIN number. This is a Treasurer Department number for the state of South Carolina. So make sure that you have that number there. You can apply without that number, but we want to make sure that we get one prior to receiving an award so that it goes more quickly at the end. All right, well, I have filled out everything on my cover sheet, so I'm going to now mark as complete. As I finish each section, I mark it as complete. And if there's anybody that's not muted, if you want to mute real quickly, so that we can go to our next section, which is our narrative. Now, if you'll remember, we talked about our narrative being some of the important parts that get copied over into the contract. I'm going to edit my form here. And we've got the project summary, and this is your elevator speech. So I had to put something in here. So I just say test, 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 but this is where you would put your elevator speech. This is where you talk about the American Revolution and its connection back to the Rev War. Your project connection back to the Rev War. Both of these will get copied over into your contract if you're awarded. This is just some statistical data. You choose your county that you live in, and then it will be the tier number will come up automatically. It will let you know which one to choose once you choose your county. And then it will automatically populate your tax job credit ranking based on the Department of Revenue. And that just gives us some statistics to go by. Have you received information or funding from SC250 before? Well, in this case, we're going to say yes. We got a $3,000 organizing grant for strategic planning. But you might be saying no. This may be your first application. What type of grant? Local activities grant. And as you change this, it would affect what questions you see here. So we're holding events. That's what we're going to do. We decided of all these options under local activities grant, we're going to hold events. You can say other, and then you can give a description. And then points to consider. So when you're writing your execution of plan, you want to say, where will the event be taking place? So you would put that in here. Who's your target audience? What are the details of the event and activity? So these questions change based on the type of grant that you are applying for. So make sure that you choose the right one before you start typing, because if you change it, it will erase this one box right here. It will reset it. So make sure that you have set your grant type here prior to starting to type down here. Scholars and peer review. So we always want to make sure everything's accurate. So are there going to be scholars, and who's going to be doing the history part of your project? Promotion. We want to mark, it's no need to chop down a tree in the forest and nobody hear it. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're doing promotion for all projects, and you can talk about what you would be doing for your event. And then here is that other section that's going to be copied into your contract if awarded. This is where you say your deliverables, and I like to just list them 1, 2, 3. For example, a new County 250 website, new County 250 social media pages, maintenance plan for both. So you can have 1, 2, 3 list your deliverables. You can also then list your measurements of success. It could be attendees at the event, a survey of participants, media coverage, social media interaction, clicks on a website. Those could all be examples of things you're going to measure to see if this was successful. And you can even set parameters. You can even say, we want to see our number of our e-news grow by 20%, based on feedback from the event, something like that. Inclusion. So here you can talk about both those untold stories of African Americans, Native Americans, women, and children, but also loyalists. You can talk about in the British. You can talk about how you just reached out in your community to encourage everybody to attend from different parts of the communities of your community. So these are some different ways that you have reached out and tried to be as inclusive as possible. Participation and access. This is where we see that people's money needs to have people's access. So we need to have some sort of public access for something that is paid for with the people's money. So this is where you talk about that access. Engagement is wanting something to live beyond that one day. Maybe you have a takeaway from the event. Maybe you have sign up for the e-news at your event. Maybe you have a video that's made of the event that can be shared across the state. So these are the engagement pieces that will be part of your plan. And here's that hard question: longevity, lasting impact. How do you see the state funding having an impact on historical tourism, education, and our engagement to your community? Why would taxpayer money be spent on this project? Why should it be spent? Because why is it important? Why is this? How does it move the needle regarding how people see South Carolina and its pivotal role in the fight for independence? So all of your instructions are right here. Just have to read through those, and then you can give it an answer. Partnerships, very important to show partnerships. They really like to see this. So make sure that you're talking about not only who your partners are, but what are they bringing to the table. So you might say Chamber of Commerce is going to do the marketing side for us and promotion of the event. You're going to have the local venue is donating the venue for the event. You've got your local college is going to provide the scholars to do the research for the event. You know, who are your partners on this project? So when you get to that last written question, you still got your timetable to do, but you have to save the form. So this is really important to be able to get to your timetable. You've got to save your form. And what does it do? Take you to the top and scroll down. You have to scroll all the way down to get back to your timetable. So this is just a different type of section. So you have to be in save form to get there. You add a row, and we're going to say test, test, test. And we have to have a description. It's red start with an asterisk, so we know we have to have it there. And we're going to pick a date, and we're going to save. Remember, and it takes you to the top, and I've got to scroll all the way down to get back to that timetable. But now I have two different numbers. Keep in mind, you want your first number to always start after any potential award date. So if it's a monthly award, you want it to start the month after. If it is a premier project or major grant like this one would be, you want it to start after the award date, which is going to be after the next commission meeting. So make sure that you know when you can start having those items. Anything that happens after an award date can be reimbursed by the grant funds. Anything prior to an award date cannot be reimbursed by grant funds. So keep that in mind as you do your timetable and your planning. As we move forward here, you want to have at least 3 line items here. What are those benchmarks? When are you going to be excited that you got this part of your planning done or this part of your project done? Do those benchmarks for yourself and your planning. All right, so that is the narrative. I'm going to say I'm done, and I'm going to mark it as complete. And now I have 3 check marks. We've got 3 more quick sections. We've got assurances and certifications. This is honestly the CYA of these. Read through it. Make sure the person who is your grantee, which is your fiscal agent, feels comfortable with all these things. It says you're going to have a grant orientation meeting with me. You're going to follow the procurement code of your fiscal agent. You're going to not do any work prior to an award. You're going to not damage any historic properties. You're going to not steal intellectual property. You're going to not hire somebody who's been disbarred. Those kinds of things are all part of the assurances. So make sure you read through them. Once you're comfortable, then you say yes. And this is like signing it. So you say yes, and you put the name of the person with your authorized officer. If you are a government agency, You do need to put your highest elected official. Usually it's your county council chair in this section down here. This just means you have looped them in. Or if it's the, your municipality, then it's your mayor. So you've looped them in that you're applying for this grant underneath that municipality or county. So once we finished and signed off on this, I'm going to mark it as complete. Now I have 4 check marks. I need 2 more. So we're going to go to support materials. So under support materials, you'll see that these check marks are here, but they don't mean that they're complete. This means that they're required. If you see up here, it says required. So these 3 things are required of all grants per state statute. So I have to have a W-9 from the fiscal agent. I have to have a fiscal agent's adopted budget for the current fiscal year. And then I have to have some kind of financial statement for last fiscal year. That could be a 990, that could be an audit if it's a county. It could, and if it means that you haven't finished the audit from the year before, but it's coming, you can do the one from the year before that. As long as I have the latest financial statement, make sure that you attach that in those 3. Now, if you are a nonprofit, these next 4 are also required. They don't have check marks here, but they are required if you are a nonprofit. And you need your 501c3 or 501c6 letter. You need a copy of Secretary of State annual charity registration letter. Now, a lot of people are confused by this. This is a letter that goes out saying that you are in good standing. It has an expiration date on it, and make sure it's not already expired. I've had a lot of people attach ones that are out of date. So we want to make sure that this is a letter that shows that this is not something you print offline. This is usually something they mail to you or email to you. Reach out to them if you have any questions about that. List of board members and a mission statement of nonprofits also required. Then if you are doing a county organizing grant, you have to have your contact information and your county resolution. But otherwise, you can look at what type of grant you're working with and see what is required, or simply come down to these additional support documents and you can add a new item and you can add a new attachment. You can browse and attach those as you need to. With the ones up here, as you can see, if you can hover over them, you can click and attach a copy of Secretary of State. So the ones that are named, you can actually click on. I do want to mention this top one here, letter of support from your County 250 committee. So if you have not done so already, make sure that you're communicating with the County 250 committee, and you can actually click here for a list of those contacts for those local committees if you don't know who it is. If you have any trouble getting that, just email me and I'll make sure I connect you to the right people so that you can get a letter from them. It's just good to not surprise your local committee when you're applying for a grant. And then finally, well, let me go ahead and mark this as complete. Again, each time I'm done, I'm going to mark as complete. And my next one is budget. But you can see that we have tabs here, so you can go from section to section here as well. Now we're under the budget. We heard all of these recommendations earlier, so we're going to scroll down. We see under personnel category. So there's different categories. And when it comes to the end of the day, when you're doing your final report, the difference between categories can be changed up to, you can make adjustments up to 10% between categories, but beyond that, you would have to do a contract amendment. So really be careful when you go to put this together that you have a good idea of what needs to go where. Personnel breakdown. This is your staff oversight. Again, cannot be more than 20% of your total ask. And now we're going to see supplies, equipment breakdown, contractual breakdown. So again, staff, personnel is staff, contractual is where you're hiring somebody. So we're going to hire this person for $2,000. We're going to hire a GIS professional for 700. If you need to add another row, you just add a row, scroll down a little bit, and then you can say, we're going to need somebody for planning services. We're going to do strategic planning, and they're going to charge us, $2,000. And it always takes you to the top when you add a new. So you just scroll back down, and now you can see our planning services. If you need to delete it, you see how it's green, so I can click anywhere and I delete the row. And now we go all the way down. Everything above cost share, everything above this is going to total your ask. So not your total budget, but your total ask gets put in everything above here. Then your match, your cost share would go here. And for example, I'm going to add a row. We're going to do county A tax. And it's going to be cash. And it was $3,000. Now when I scroll back down, my total budget is $6,000, and that's a 50% match. So again, what you're looking for match is you're required to have 20% for a major grant. 25% needs to be right here or more for a premier project. So look in this percentage of match to make sure that you've reached the correct amount. Once I'm through with my budget, I mark it as complete. I now have all of the budget things completed, but guess what? It's telling me that my budget is lower than the allowed limit. So let me go in here real quickly. Now I'm going to add back my planning services. And this is going to be really expensive strategic planning. We're going to add that. Now we're above that number. So when I go back to my app list, I now have a green line here and I have a new button. I have submit application. So I can now submit my application. Once you hit this red submit, there's no editing. Before that, you can go back in and edit anything that you need to edit. So that is our demo. So I'm going to stop sharing. How did everybody feel? Any questions? Do we have anything in the chat, Brett?
We do. Ms. Slayton asked, can you copy a grant app in one grant level to start a different grant level?
Great question. You can clone and do a copy for the one that you were just looking at. Obviously, it was originally an organizing grant. So you can go in and I copied an organizing grant to do a major grant right there. So you can copy a lower level grant. It's just mainly you'll have to just do some little tweaking as you go through.
Okay, Ms. Murphy asks, as a statewide organization, who would be my committee or representative? We are located in Richland County.
Okay, so that's a great question. So I guess technically Richland County would be if you're located in Richland County, you would reach out to Richland County and I can get you the contact information for Richland County. All right, anybody else? Well, I just did a great job then. There you go. It's a lot to take in. I'll be glad to do a one-on-one with anybody. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, or please don't hesitate to set up a one-on-one and we can go through and look at your particulars. Okay. If there are no more questions, I guess that's it for today. Yeah, oh, we do have a question. Tim, yeah, unmute yourself.
if you have a particular project in mind, but you're not sure which grant category it might best fit in, should we
Yeah.
just email you a brief description and say, I'd like a one-on-one to figure out where this fits?
That sounds good. Yeah, that would be perfect. Are you the storyteller, Tim Lowry?
Guilty as charged. Yes.
I'm so bad. I'm a little starstruck. So good to see you. Yeah, thanks for being on the Zoom. Okay. Anybody else? Thank you again. Y'all have a great afternoon. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.